I think the biggest thing I learned was from sports, Division One expectations.
What made you decide to get into construction?
He's my husband now, but he was a builder, and he was building for U.S. Home, and I was like, this is the best job ever. Like, I'm in.
$1 to $2 million project to a $5 to $10 million project is like light years different, right? How do you get from point A to point B?
When you hit a few pain points, you're going to make sure that will never happen again. Maybe a trade that you're really relying on and doesn't show up, or a project manager that you're really relying on and didn't pull through. It all comes back to you or me as the owner. And I'm going to work with people I'm aligned with on my team.
$10 million versus $1 million, right? Mm-hmm. What are those differences?
Yeah, to bridge that gap. So let's say you go from a $2 to $3 million home to, let's just say, $5 or $6 million home. The bridge consists of the trade base that can actually execute what the architects intend, the designers intend, and the clients expect. That's the bridge, trade base. Yeah. Second thing is, that's the professionalism that's required to make that jump.
Hey friends, welcome back to the Your Project Shepherd podcast. I am your host, Curtis Lawson, and today joining me on the podcast is Erin Stetzer. Erin Stetzer is the owner of Erin Stetzer Homes. Her company is a leading luxury home builder here in Houston. She also offers owners representation services and recently launched her Beyond the Blueprints program, which is a program for both industry professionals and homeowners to sharpen their knowledge so that they can complete their projects with clarity and confidence. And I stole that line directly from your website, by the way. So, as we were talking about before this, a lot of this stuff is like what we do here at Shepherd Construction Advisors and the Your Project Shepherd podcast. I felt like we have a lot in common, and I'm super excited to chat with you today about all this. Having people who are kind of focused on the same passion for doing things the right way and kind of guiding people through the process just really gets me excited. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to catch up.
All right. So tell our guests, our listeners rather, something about your background. So, I have not hung out with you in person, right? So I don't know a lot of this stuff either. So your background, where you grew up, how you got to being here in Houston, because I saw that you were not from Houston and that you have traveled from the frigid Northlands to warm Houston.
Yes. Okay, I'll make it really quick.
Okay.
Grew up in Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, one of 7 kids, oldest girl of 7 kids. Went to college in Connecticut, had a full ride Division I scholarship for basketball. That's how I got through college. And then I actually played competitive golf on the women's Nike mini tour for a year. Yeah, but I didn't make it. I slept in my car. So did that. And so got all of my competitiveness underway. And then worked in corporate America for a little bit and then landed in the building world. And I started at David Weekley Homes, production home building in Austin. Okay.
What made you decide to get into construction?
This is funny. I was in corporate America in sales. So I was traveling across all of the, southeast part of the country as a rep, and met he's my husband now, but he was a builder and he was building for U.S. Home. And I was like, this is the best job ever. Like, I'm in. So I when I could, I would hang out with him and try to learn. I'm like, that's it, I'm in. But he left the industry like 3 years later. He was done.
So, you didn't go to school for construction science or construction management or anything like that, right?
Nothing. Went to school, had a finance degree. I think the biggest thing I learned was from sports, Division I expectations. Yeah.
There's a lot of leadership crossover, right, between sports and project management.
Yeah,
leading a company.
For sure. I think leadership and the practice, just consistently showing up, doing what you don't like to do all the time, but results are delivered, expectations are expected. You keep your scholarship by performing, right? So you have a minimum GPA. And so every day was school from 8 to 1, practice from 1 to 1 to 3:30, go to the cafeteria for dinner, study hall till 9 every day for, repeat.
Yeah. It's the same formula for being successful in a lot of things,
Yeah,
right?
especially in the field in construction.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah. My kids are music majors in college. They're on full music scholarships for college. So it's the same mentality. It's like you keep your grades up, take your core classes, but then you're spending a lot of hours just practicing. And the actual, the game, the concert is a very short amount of time that you're actually doing the thing, but it's all those hours behind the scenes that go into it to make that concert, that performance, that game, what it should be, right?
Yes. And just the skills developed, for your kids, the skills that they're developing now. And then when it's game time or it's concert time, you let it rip.
Yeah.
It is what it is. You've put all the work in and now you let it rip.
If you shoot 100 free throws in practice, your chances of making that free throw in the game are a lot higher, right?
Higher.
You play that scale over and over and over in the practice room musically, and then your chances of nailing that note in the performance are exponentially higher, right?
Totally. What's going through my head now is like the metronome, right? The metronome that your kids just that constant boom, 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 boom.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So how many years have you been doing this now?
Oh, probably 25 years. Yeah. So production home building, and then we started having kids. So I broke off and did my own thing, small bathroom, kitchen, built a few spec homes, market crashes. We go down with it, get into remodeling on a heavier scale, still new construction. Made sure to meet, people I wanted to align with in the future. 2008 hits. My entire process and job was to figure out who I want to work with and how I can serve them, period. Go.
Is 2008, and in 2008, for people who are listening who don't know, is kind of when the real estate market took a big old fat dive. And a lot of people at that time, went out of business or started struggling financially. There's a lot of change happened in the industry during that time. And
for sure.
I was right in the middle of that.
Were you?
Oh, yeah. Just built myself a brand new house in 2006, finished it 2007, moved in, sold it in mid 2008.
There we go. That's the process. That was our process too. We built a home, 2008 hits, sell it, downsize, recover, build the business.
Yeah, I think a lot of people went through that same cycle. So you started off doing small projects, small remodeling projects, and kind of built your way up through larger and larger stuff.
Yes. So when I moved to Houston, I knew two people, my aunt and uncle. And the only project I ever did for them, unfortunately, is when their condo, the people above them, the toilet leaked, and that was just a few years ago. So really, I was planted in a city with 6 million people, didn't know anyone, literally not one person. And so I think there's something really cool when people have the chance to do that, because you get the chance to really create what you want to create, right? If you're kind of stuck in your hometown, maybe there are some, you're kind of like stuck in the same hamster wheel, I think sometimes. So it was really refreshing to jump into a city where I didn't know anybody and create accordingly.
So, we had the same kind of similar start. I started off doing, in fact, I moved to Houston from North Carolina. Although I was born here, I grew up in North Carolina. Long story, but we moved back to Houston as an adult in 2000, and kind of the same thing. Didn't know anybody, didn't have the network, didn't have so it was kind of starting our own thing, right? Same background. Also started doing small remodeling projects and kind of built up from there. And kind of for the first 10 years, really, I think that you were probably a little more focused than I was. I kind of did a lot of different size projects, did a few spec houses, made some money, lost some money. Didn't really have a firm direction. So I didn't have that epiphany aha moment where I was like, I need to define, these are the people that I want to work with. These are the types of projects that I want to do. I just kind of meandered a little bit more than you. But I think that a lot of small contractors, a lot of builders in general, kind of take that path. It's kind of the natural progression, right? You start small, you do bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually you're maybe doing some really big stuff. But I think that one of the things I saw on one of your social media posts, you said, it's hard to go from doing small projects and all of a sudden, even going from small to $1 million project is a big jump, but then going from a $1 to $2 million project to a $5 to $10 million project is like light years different, right? So one of the things that I wanted to talk about was like how do you get from point A to point B? I think there's a lot of contractors out there that want to, in their mind, they think those big projects are where it's at. That's what they want to do, which I would say is not always the right path. There's a lot of money to be made in smaller projects at a higher margin, right? But if you want to do those big fancy projects, it's a lot of fun. It's a great thing to do, but it's not an easy transition, right?
Yes. Okay. So if we were to break that down, at least the way I thought about it or think about it, one, I think it's important, like you said, to just sort of try everything for a while, right? Like first 10 years, just learn, get kicked around a little bit, lose some money, make some money, meet some new people, establish a trade base. All of that, I think, is a necessary part of the process. I really do. Because it really, when you hit a few pain points, you're going to make sure that will never happen again. Mm-hmm. And that can happen with, maybe a trade that you're really relying on and doesn't show up. Now, what do you do? Or a project manager that you're really relying on and didn't pull through, right? It all comes back to you or me as the owner. I can remember this. We're remodeling a home and they're friends of ours, very nice home. And they were keeping the carpet and they're moving in the next day, and the carpets were supposed to be cleaned, and project manager decides to cut his lawn rather than making sure the carpet was clean. So I happened to go over there to make sure. Ended up going to Home Depot, renting whatever I could to like make sure these carpets were cleaned. There, the air conditioning wasn't working. It's 100 degrees. Like, those are the times where I literally said to myself in that moment, this will never happen again. Never. Yep. And I'm going to work with people I'm aligned with on my team.
Yeah, you have to have those moments to make you realize these are the systems I need to put in place. These are the people this is how I need to structure my team for these things not to happen, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, to me, a lot of what you're learning kind of in those first 5 to 10 years is really, make some mistakes, learn from the mistakes, but like create the systems that will get you there. None of this happens by chance. None of it happens by just throwing a bunch of stuff out there and hoping it sticks. Like you have to, here's a mistake. How do I create a system to avoid this mistake from happening again? Right? Mm-hmm. It's like, every issue that you encounter, you have to create a process around that issue, right?
For sure. And that's a daily thing. So just what you said, everything is a system. When I first started the business, we have 5 kids. I literally didn't have not a second to waste. And so I was very clear that my family and my business are going to grow at the same rate. I'm not in a hurry. So everything is based on systems in the business, so that when I'm at the park with one of the kids, or I'm at, a mom's day out program with one of the kids, or, someone is hurt and can't go to school that day or is sick, all of these systems have to be in play, because I don't want my team to be waiting on me so they can get things done. So systems around communication, systems around budgeting, systems within project management, non-negotiables on the team, clear culture, all of these are developed day after day after day. And in fact, every week when we have our team meeting, we bring up what's working, what's not working, what are the opportunities, what did we fail on, what do you foresee, what are you anticipating, how can we help? That's what every Wednesday is all about.
Yeah, it's another great basketball analogy, right? It's your team plays systems, right? I mean, I didn't play competitive basketball. I went to University of North Carolina, big basketball school, right?
Yeah, great school.
And so the team has a system that they run, right? And if things start to break down, you fall back on your system. You're like, okay, we're out of system. We need to get back in system in order for us to score, to win, right? Yep. And so if you don't have those systems in place and things break down, what do you go to?
You're done. It's pickup basketball then. Right? That's what it is. It's just pickup.
Yeah. It's every man for himself.
Yes. Yes. Which is, that, right. So you're right. So like every season, coaches are studying the next teams. And we are now developing new offenses and new defenses every season. New players enter every year. Who are the starters?
What are the strengths and weaknesses?
Strengths and weaknesses. Preseason. 5 a.m. workouts, 2 p.m. scrimmaging every day. So like all of these systems are in play so that you can deliver. And I will say the hardest position on a team are the substitutes, because the starters, the starting five, you're warmed up, everybody's getting, ready. You understand you understand what's happening in the game and the flow, and you get a substitute. That substitute has to be on. Mm-hmm. Hardest role. And so when you have systems, you're preparing these substitutes to walk in and go.
Mm-hmm. So kind of back to kind of scaling from one level to the next. So I think, builders who are kind of operating in the, let's say, the $1 to $2 million price range for new construction, right? They get hired to do a $2 to $3 million project, or a $4 to $5 million project, or a $10 million project, and all of a sudden they get buried because they don't have the systems in place. There's similarities, but there's different. I don't know if it's different systems, but it's different levels of understanding that it takes to do, $10 million versus $1 million, right? Mm-hmm. What are those differences?
Yeah, to bridge that gap. So let's say you go from a $2 to $3 million home to, let's just say, $5 or $6 million home. The bridge consists of the trade base that can actually execute what the architects intend, the designers intend, and the clients expect. That's the bridge, trade base. Yeah. Second thing is clear communication with money and with our team. That has to be clear. And those go back to the systems. That's the professionalism that's required to make that jump. Mm-hmm. Right? Because we're managing a lot of pieces and parts and a lot of money. And it has to be extremely clear that, there's a whole process. The work gets planned, then the work gets implemented, then the work gets checked, then the work is agreed that this is what we are intending. Architect, designer, client, this is what you want. Thumbs up. Mm-hmm. Great. Now we can pay the bill.
Yep.
As clear those are the steps to delivering a project that people pay for and expect.
I would say on, less expensive, and I'm using air quotes for less expensive, because $1 million is still expensive, right? But I would say that, around that point, a lot of times the builder is still kind of the star player. Like the builder is kind of driving everything, the point guard almost, so to speak. And a lot of times people will hire a builder at that price range because, that builder does that kind of house, or that I've seen this builder's work. He builds that kind of house. That's what I want, right? Whereas I think the higher you go in price range, the builder is not the star anymore. The builder is a player, is one of
the guide, 4
or 5 players on the team now, mm-hmm. right? And it's not about what the builder, it is about what the builder can do, but it's not about the builder's vision, right? Mm-hmm. It's about the team's vision. It's the architect's vision, the designer's vision, the homeowner's vision, and the builder is the one who is pulling it together and executing it. But at the end of the day, it's not. there has to be less ego on the part of the builder, I think, at that level, because it's not about you. It's about, can you make their vision happen?
It really is. It's about guiding the project based on the project's goals. It's as simple as that, right? So we're developing the roadmap as the builders, and we're planning and we're guiding the entire team to get there. Zero ego, really. Nobody should have an ego, right? We're all here to serve each other as teammates, and we're here to serve the clients. And those are by far the best projects I've ever been in, where there's zero ego. How can we serve? People have bad days, right? They just do. Hey, you're having a bad day. What can I do to help? From the painter to the tile person to the architect to the designer to the client. There are plenty of meetings where a client shows up and, I'm like, ooh, this is just not a place you want to be right now, is it? You're like, we don't have to have this meeting, and they're like, no, it's okay. I'm like, actually, I don't think it is. Maybe we meet again. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everyone in the process makes mistakes, and if you're a part of a team where everybody is cognizant of that and doesn't kind of give each other too much grief about making a small mistake. So I've had a lot of architects on the podcast, and we always talk about there is no perfect set of plans. Whether it's the architect or the engineer, or the designer, we're all human. There's always going to be some error on the plans or the selections or whatever. No builder is perfect. No project manager is perfect. The designer or the architect are going to walk into the job site and see something that you or I didn't see, because maybe we're there every day, and it's easy to become blind to things you see every day, right? And so the whole team has to work together. Hey, I'm catching some mistakes on the plan. Let's talk about that. You're catching the error in the framing that I didn't see. Let's talk about that, right? So again, remove the ego and look at it from the perspective of how can we execute the vision and treat each other with respect and treat each other as team members.
Yes. Respect is a big word. Yeah. And and really, it's just like little kids. The paperwork we have is a starting point. Let's not make it more than it really is. It could be a lighting design, right? It's as simple as that. It's a starting point. Now, what needs to be developed, or what wants to be developed as a team, so that we can execute one time? And so that might mean, like you said, hey, we noticed that the HVAC registers aren't lined up with the lighting, the recess cans. The lighting designer could be, is that important to you? It's important to us. We'd like for this set of plans to really give pure guidance to the people installing, so they can install one time. And like you said, that, Curtis, those are the conversations that clients, a $10 million home client hires a team that does that. They don't want to be involved in all of it.
No.
They just want their team to figure this out.
That's what I'm paying you for.
Yes. Yeah.
One of the big differences when the price starts to go up, I'd say past a couple $1,000,000, is very few things are standard anymore. Everything is designed. It's not, again, kind of falling back to, lower price points. A lot of things may be at the discretion of the builder or the installer. This is kind of the standard way it's always done. We always lay our cans out this way. We always put our outlets at this height, whatever, right? But we start to escalate in price. Now everything is specified, and the client expectations are much higher for meeting those specifications. Everyone just has a higher standard at that point, right? And so it's the builder has to have the capability to see those details, understand how to execute them, and then back to your point, you have to have the trade partner that's capable of executing that detail as well. Mm-hmm. You posted a video on your Instagram a few weeks ago, this beautiful window in a hallway that had some drywall details around it that were kind of the sculpted drywall detail. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
there aren't a lot of drywall finishers who can pull that off. Right.
Right.
And so it's knowing the players on your team. It's knowing the strengths of those people. Do I have a guy that can do this? If I don't, where do I go to find that guy? Yes,
that's a really good example. So it was a quatrefoil window. I had to learn what quatrefoil even meant. I was like, oh, that's a quatrefoil window. And so when we talk about, taking that bridge over to the $5 to $10 million homes, to me, the details, we can all pretend there are details in front of us. I think the difference is actively running down the details. Like in that quatrefoil window, I said, I don't understand how you're going to do this. Literally, this happened. Sheetrocker, how are you going to do this? And he explained it. He said, well, different sheetrock beads splay at different angles. And they curve at different angles. But this one didn't quite have the curve we needed. So I had to cut part of this sheetrock bead. And he explained everything. And it goes back to like, I'm not going to feel good as the builder unless I know you as the sheetrocker can do what I'm asking. So he did. I'm like, okay, do it. Show me an example right now. And he did. He did half the quatrefoil window. And he showed me exactly which beads he was using. They were architectural beads with different splays. And I said, and there are a kabillion like screws in this thing.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But that's the norm in a $10 million home, with the floor, with the drywall, with the cabinets. That is the normal way of building a $10 million home, right? So that's the difference between even a $5 million home and a $10 million home.
Yeah.
It's actively pursuing the details. They're never in front of you.
And knowing where to go to get the products to make that happen, right? This isn't stuff that you're going to go to the big box store and buy off the shelf, right? So you have a knowledge of the vendors or having a trade partner that has those connections to buy those correct materials to make it happen.
For sure. And I think for if we were to just talk about builders, like I would say I am not a technical expert by any means in construction, right? But you and I both know if the project goal needs to be right here, you're going to connect the dots and I'm going to connect the dots to get right here. Yes. That's the $10 million build,
Yeah. Great point. So if a builder wants to get to that point, we've mentioned that they need to have the trade base, which I agree. That's one of the most important things. Like, and I think one of the mistakes builders make is having a trade base that's maybe not qualified and then leaning on them very heavily because the builder themselves doesn't have the knowledge, right? A lot of builders are like me and you. Like, we didn't grow up in the trades. We didn't grow up swinging a hammer, wearing the bags. And so we may not have the technical knowledge of how to execute things. So we have to rely on those trade partners to do it. Well, I think many builders rely on the wrong trade partners, and they get themselves into a lot of trouble by relying on those trade partners, right? So whether it's executing a finish detail or whether it's something even more important long-term for the performance of the home, like the building envelope, like the stucco installation and the waterproofing that goes around that, right? When people lean on the wrong trade partners, they're opening themselves up to a lot of conflict, yes, but also long-term liability too.
Yeah, and I think that stems from humans like to stay in the box because it's comfy and cozy, right? Mm-hmm. And so if we can take that box with us everywhere on every project, it's easier, you get to know people, but it's not always the right call. And so the one thing I've learned in the building industry, as soon as I hear, I'm not kidding you, as soon as I hear from a trade, well, that's the way we've always done it, that's their last day working for us. And I'm not kidding you, that is their last day working for us. So it's really having the courage and the faith or belief that one can accomplish this over here, and then putting the effort and the practice into finding who the right person is. And that takes a lot of 5 a.m. mornings. That takes a lot of thinking when you're on a run or I'm on a run. It takes constant flushing out of figuring out the right person, the right piece of execution. And that's the gap between the builder in the box and the builder who will tackle details, right? Like an energy bar, just eat that thing up, you know? So, and it takes effort and it takes risk and it takes a belief system and it takes relying on others. And those are all that's risky business, you know? And so it takes a constant studying of how to accomplish things. I can remember in 2008, market tanks, and I said, the one thing I can do is get over to the GHBA and take every single class, right? So graduate master builder, done.
Yep.
If I can't get a job right now, I better be learning, right?
Yeah.
And I remember too, the president of the GHBA, you know, I have 4 kids and I'm driving a minivan and I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to survive in this business. I walked up to him and I said, if there's a job that you have that I can help you with, I'm in. And he did. He said, I have a job and you can help me with it. And I drove my minivan over there and I tackled it. And that's one person who took a risk on me. And that's what I had to do to feed my family. That's what was required. That's not easy.
Yeah.
You know, but that's what it takes to get out of the box.
Aside from trade partners, which is, again, I think it's one of the most essential things as well. We touched on systems a minute ago. Having systems in place to manage large amounts of complex information. You know, we get, I'm sure you get some very large plan sets, and there's a lot of information on that plan set. And so it's how are you going to analyze it, digest it? How are you going to organize it so all the people who need to have the information are going to have access to it? I got a set of plans last week for a remodel that was over 100 sheets for a remodel, and it had everything in there. It had 2 pages of 30 by 42 plan pages, two full pages of nothing but tile schedule. That's a lot of information that has to be managed. You know, you've got to take that, you've got to get quotes on all that tile material, you've got to get it to your installers and get proposals from them. You know, you've got to handle all the ordering of that material. It's just a lot to disseminate. And then there's another 2 pages worth of millwork details and another full page worth of paint schedules. There's just a lot of information, right? And so, you know, how do you manage all that information? What do you do?
Yeah. So that's one thing. I would say, you know, I'm not the smartest person in the world. So what I have to do is break things into small little chunks. So in that case, I would look at the 100 pages and I would literally take one elevation of the plan and study it. And I would put this into my calendar to do this for 2 hours a day for the next 2 weeks. And I map it out on the time that I'm going to spend, where I'm going to spend it, and where it's most effective. So if it's in the budgeting phase, then there's a whole system we have that we run from day 0 to 21. And these things have to happen. And it goes in the calendar. It goes into the person who's in charge of pricing it. And we just chunk through it. We just work right through it. We don't skip it. We don't take another meeting that's more fun. We do the work as planned. So for me, a big thing is it's so normal and easy to get overwhelmed. And the first thing to alleviate that is to take action on the little things, right? So that's just the pricing. But if it's building, I just had like you said, we have phone calls every day. And there was some confusion between what's happening at frame stage with, you know, the appliances, wherever. And I said, now, you know, we're supposed to do this, project manager. You're going to take every elevation and we're going to talk the language of the trades, and you're going to laminate every single elevation, and you're going to post it on every single wall. Nobody's too good for that job, right? That's what needs to happen. If it needs to be on a weekend, laminate. If it needs to be your kids, laminate. My kids were the best laminators, I swear to you, every weekend. They got paid 50 cents a piece.
Get a little machine and send it through there.
And they would get paid 50 cents per page. And I walk up with a stack the next day and staple it to the walls. But that's just an example of taking something that could, like take your breath away and just simplifying it, because the language is simple. And construction it's not rocket science. It's just, again, breaking it down, putting it on the wall, making sure that people know, oh, well, that's where, the washer and dryer go. And so now HVAC person knows, plumber knows, an electrician knows. And there's a binder there for the appliances. So everybody has what they need. We're just going to slow it down and go wall by wall. So that's with the $20,000 bathroom remodel, right? And the $25 million home, same process.
Do you use a project management software to organize and disseminate information as well?
Okay, you're going to laugh. So when I said I'm like really not smart, I'm really not. So we use Excel only. Okay. And within Excel, we have worksheets that tie into each other. That way we can change the system every Wednesday when we want to. For example, changes happen on a project. We have a modification system that's set up in Excel. Why did it happen? It happened for one of 4 reasons. There was a change, a detail was developed, we missed it, and whatever the other one is. But there are usually and we document that. Why, or something was added or deleted. Why? Okay, next step. Who's involved in this? How do we get pricing? Get the pricing. Save the pricing. Here's where it's filed. Get the modification approved. Boom. So all of this is not fancy in our world. It's literally step by step by step, so that if I'm not there for a month, everybody knows what they're doing. I think with software programs, what I found was my project managers were spending too much time learning the technology. I, as the owner, want them talking to the plumber about why that pipe isn't sloped to make its way down into the foundation, sewer line. That's what I want them there, not on their computer.
If you found value in this episode of Your Project Shepherd podcast, please consider leaving us a review and sharing it with your friends. That helps us expand our reach and bring this content to more people. Thanks for being here. I think whether it's using a well-developed Excel sheet. I mean, I know a lot of great builders who use either Excel or Google Docs or whatever, but they have a system, right?
Yes.
So effectively, they've created their own software.
Yes.
And they're using off the shelf, whether it's Microsoft or Google or whatever, but they've created a system that works for them for organization. Or whether you're using a software system, whether it's Resio, CoConstruct, BuilderTrend, whatever you're using, right? It's having some kind of system in place that you're using to manage your files, manage all the information, manage your budgets. That's one of the big separators to me of a good, solid, organized builder versus somebody who's not on that level, right? Is the information's a mess.
Yeah. And so where do you think people go to get these systems? Where do builders go?
I think they have to, classes. I mean, you have to take classes. You have to learn, right? I mean, I did the same thing that you did, and probably about the same time. We may have been in some of the same classes.
We probably were.
It was about that time. It was about 2008-ish, and I did all the NAHB classes over at the GHBA. Got the the CGB and the GMB and the CAP, the CAPS, and all that kind of stuff. And so as part of that curriculum, there were classes there's financial management classes, project management classes, scheduling classes. They were all part of that curriculum, right? So you're learning a lot of that framework through that coursework. So I think that's huge. GHBA currently has some great classes as well. You're offering some great classes through your Builder's Blueprint program, right?
Yes, they're available, right?
Yeah. So let's kind of sidetrack a little real quick. We'll come back around to the luxury home thing here in a second. But since we mentioned education and training, why did you decide to start doing the Builder's Blueprint thing?
Oh, probably similar to you, where we've been in this long enough where we know the game, right? And we know how to play the game, and we know how to win at the game. And so I felt like homeowners were at a disadvantage, not really knowing how all of this works, right? How to put your team together, right? Your architect, designer, builder. What's important, how to know yourself, like really look at what do I want out of this and what's realistic. Mm-hmm. If it's your first home, that's a different picture than maybe your fourth or fifth home, right? And so just making sure to understand the whole umbrella, understand the whole picture, so that when you do get into the process, you're armed with information so you can make good decisions. Mm-hmm. And what's really interesting is I wrote that course for homeowners, but about 80% of the people in that course are builders, designers, architects. So then what I did is I said, that's great feedback. It seems like there's a thirst for the business part of this. Mm-hmm. So we launched a coaching program for industry professionals. And that's where, like you've been in this long enough, like the systems are in play, but maybe people just don't have the tools or don't even know what these systems look like. So let's speed that up and open the curtain. And, I wish I had that,
Me too.
You too, right? Like 10 or 15 years ago. And the GHBA is awesome, right? And those were really valuable places to learn and still are. I think it's a fun place to really get in the trenches with builders that have sort of crystallized all of this information that they've collected and worked through. And it's not always black and white. And decisions are based on a set of criteria, but there's the human part of this. Mm-hmm. And so making good decisions based on, what you've promised and committed to is sometimes a hard thing to do. And I think that when collectively people get together and support each other, then the road is definitely clearer for people.
I love the kind of the culture of sharing of this information. I mean, that to me, that's one of the best things about GHBA, NHB as an organization. It's funny, we've done like two podcasts recently, Francis, on GHBA, NHB membership, 2 or 3 recently anyway. So it's funny, we can kind of keep coming back to the same topic unintentionally. But I love the culture of wanting to bring each other up and sharing information and education. I've said so many times, there's more than enough work in Houston, Texas for a whole bunch of builders. Mm-hmm. So I don't feel like me sharing with you or sharing with another younger builder who's wanting to learn, I don't feel like I'm hurting my business by sharing my information with them.
Totally.
Because the more people who are doing things the right way, it brings up the industry as a whole. And I mean, education's a great thing, right? It's like, it's like us saying, well, we don't want those people to learn because we want to keep them down here. That's a terrible attitude to have.
Right. And it's important to collaborate. Like we've collaborated where maybe you're too busy to take on a project or I'm too busy to take on a project, but you would be the perfect fit for that project. Like you said, like there's so much opportunity for the creators of their business. Now, for those who don't want to become the best, then that could be a place where it might be very difficult to be a builder. Mm-hmm. It's a tough business.
Yeah. Sorry, we'll have to do a little pause here because I had a total brain fart. I was about to say something brilliant, and then it totally escaped me. I will too. Maybe my coffee will stir me to remember what I was just about to say.
It was too good. It got me.
Well, the problem was I had kind of my outline, and then I took a major detour on my outline, and I started looking at it. I was like, oh. All right, so let's get back into let's kind of circle back into our kind of discussion on this kind of how to get from one level to the next with your company on at least a level of projects that we're doing, right? So kind of the next thing aside from trade partners, management systems, organizational systems, right? To me, the next big key is project management. And that's finding qualified project managers, right? Having finding people who have the ability to read and interpret complex plans, people who have an eye for detail to make sure things are executed properly. How have you been successful in finding the right project managers?
So it depends on business models. So for us, we serve a clientele that's in primarily the $10 million plus homes. So the criteria there for project managers, you have to have 10 years under your belt. One. Number two is maybe you ran your own company and you figured out, I'd like to work on a team, right? Because not everybody is built for the entrepreneurial world.
Yeah.
So that's another criteria. The third thing, which I think is the most important, is a pilot program. So it's 6 or 8 weeks. Come join us, learn the culture. I have a scorecard for you. Here's the scorecard. Here's what I expect. We're going to work through this. And in 6 or 8 weeks, we'll figure out if we're a good fit for each other. So that is the way we hire people. Now, if it's, a company that's, we've been there 5, 10 years into the business, you're growing. First move is money person, right? If you're the builder or I'm the builder out there building, we can build 2, 3, 4 homes at a time. No problem. But the money management stacks up, right? So money person comes in. That would be the first move. Then you can stretch yourself. Maybe you hire an assistant, or maybe it's time when you get to 6 projects or so, you bring a project manager in. But that project manager may not have had 10 years in the business, but what would be important is to understand the business. We've hired previous designers. We've hired previous architects, right? We've hired trim carpenters, right? And so I think it's important to make the next move based on your immediate needs. Maybe it's you just need help in the field. You have to have someone who can understand, when I walk a frame, I'm looking for X, Y, and Z. I'm looking for a double bottom plate. I'm making sure it's treated lumber on the first run of the floor plate. I'm looking for, are all the nails in the joist hangers? Is my truss layout correct? Let me look at the truss plans. They know these basics to then just get the checkpoints in, right?
Yeah.
So the bases are covered, right? And so it doesn't take a 10-year veteran. It can take someone who is trained to look for critical things during construction. That can save you time. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, I've also hired a wide variety of backgrounds for project managers. In fact, I have one sitting downstairs below us right now who's a former architect who wanted to get out of the office and be in the field. I've got trim carpenters that have been, in fact, my director of construction, who's over all my project managers. He started his life wearing the bags as a framer and a finish carpenter, right? And now he's over all my project managers. So we also have had a lot of people come from different backgrounds to get there. It's, to me, it's just identifying that they have the awareness and the ability to, how should I say this? the ability to just to be conscious of details, right? Well, two things. I tell people they need two sets of lenses when they walk into a house. So I always say, as I've been doing this for 20 years. I can walk into a house, and I can kind of immediately see the big picture, but then I can also start noticing little details all at the same time. So a good project manager to me has both of those skills. They can walk in, quickly grasp, here's the big picture of what's going on, but here are also the little details that need to be attended to, right? Same thing. I'll go back to the basketball analogy, right? You walk onto the court, you're either a substitute or whatever. You're walking in. Okay, big picture. Boom. Here's what's going on. That's what I need to focus on right now. To me, that's one of the hardest skills to teach, and it's one of the hardest skills to hire for, is having the vision, right? So when you identify somebody that has that ability, you've got to retain them, make sure you're keeping them on staff, keeping them happy, because that's a unique ability to have. But when you're hiring people, I think your pilot program that you mentioned is a great idea. I should start doing that. But it's finding ways to identify that person who has that skill and hiring those people, right? But it's not always apparent. That's something that's very hard to hire for.
Yeah, so that's why that pilot program exists, because I get an understanding of how they think. They get an understanding of how direct I am with feedback. I get an understanding of how they respond to my feedback. They get an understanding of I have their back, right? It's a ping pong back and forth. Yeah. And if we can move through that while making progress, it's a winner. If we need to revisit a few things 2, 3, 4 times, then they're probably better off in a different system. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hiring project managers to me has been one of the hardest things that I've had to do over the last 20 years. I've been through a lot of people in 20 years. I have a few that have been with me for a while now that I think are fantastic. But it's to me the hardest position to hire for, because it does require kind of this vision and this attention that not everyone has.
Yeah, and same here. I've struggled with that, and the only resolution I've really found is to make sure that I'm training them, really communicating and training them. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean spending all day with them, but there are, like the whole systems where I want everything laminated on the wall. That's not a normal procedure in a home building company. Mm-mm. But it's my responsibility to explain that that's how we do things. Mm-hmm. And there are simple ways to do this. We have SOPs with just simple videos. Yep. Super straightforward. They can watch those videos. It does not have to be anything formal. It's the iPhone. You do your little video. Yeah. Now they know. But it always comes down to what I've learned is I used to think like, oh, well, they should know this. They're like 5 years into the business or 10 years into the business. And that's not the case.
You take it for granted. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't communicated that this is how we practice and this is how we deliver. And unless I'm communicating that with them, then that's my fault. Now, if I've communicated that and it's just not working, now we know, right? But most times, I will say probably 80% of the time, once we've gone through that process, people get it. They get it, and they're clear, and there's a sense of urgency. I think that's the other thing, and it's really important.
Yes.
There's always a sense of urgency.
Yes.
The baby is always crying, right? Baby's hungry, baby's tired, baby needs, change a diaper, but it's always crying.
Yes. Yeah. Sense of urgency is the other thing to me that's it's very hard to teach, mm-hmm. right? Prior to construction, kind of in between college and construction, I had this period of time I was in the restaurant business. And in the restaurant business, a sense of urgency is everything, right? Because there's a limited amount of time from when somebody sits down and wants their food, and things have to happen, bam, 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 right? And so that's a great place to learn, develop a sense of urgency. Sports is great for the same reason, but it's one of those skills that to me it's really hard. It's hard to teach and hard to coach. To me, if you can improve it, but if somebody just doesn't have it, it's hard to get them to have it, right?
That's true. And
it's like an internal drive.
It is. And frankly, my kids have taught me everything I need to know about business, because, we have 5 kids and they're about 7 years apart. Every priority is a priority, and it needs to be done efficiently and effectively every time. And so before having kids, yes, I was trained in sports. Yeah, I played under a couple of Olympic coaches. Like, I understand what it takes to deliver, but nowhere near the sense of urgency that, I was able to learn from my kids. Like, I'm not saying everybody has to have kids to learn this stuff, but for me, that was like a knock on the door that, plenty of times kids need stitches. Plenty of times that lunch needs to be made or they're not going to have lunch, right? Like, you just have to get things done. It's urgent every time. Then you stack a few kids up, then you're playing zone defense, right? You're managing multiple things that have to happen, not just one thing.
Yeah. And if you don't have a sense of urgency on a construction project, your schedule is going to start to slide, right? If you're not, I tell my project managers all the time, we have to be constantly pushing. Hopefully we have good trade partners that also have a sense of urgency, right? But if you, as the project manager, the owner of the company, if you're not constantly kind of applying gentle pressure to create and promote that sense of urgency, human nature is things are just going to pull back. They're going to slack, right? And before you know it, you've added a month, 2 months to your construction schedule. And what does that mean? That means the client's going to start getting frustrated. Maybe the architect or the designer that referred you on the project starts to get frustrated, and that can affect your long-term relationship with them. So it's, sense of urgency is everything. And just my uncle has a phrase. I have to try to remember exactly what it is. It's like gradual pressure applied relentlessly, or something like that, or constant pressure relentlessly applied. Something like that. But basically, it's like you have to always just be pushing. You don't have to be hard about it, right? But it's constantly applying that pressure to keep things moving. And the second you stop, applying that gentle pressure, things just start to kind of go back. So
for sure, I mean, nature is the best example. Your heart pumps blood every whatever beat it needs to take. When it stops pushing blood, it's done. And that's just nature. That's how things move forward.
Yeah. All right. Next thing, or kind of the last thing on my list, and then I'll ask you if you have some others that maybe have popped into your head. Kind of my last thing on my list for things that kind of make premium luxury builders a little bit different. And this doesn't always have to be, it's not the top of the list, but to me it's important, is some kind of financial wherewithal, some kind of financial strength. The bigger the project is, the larger the dollars are, the more risk there is for you as a builder to be involved, right? You have a lot more opportunity to have a lot of dollars stretched out before you get paid. Or you're dealing with clientele who have the ability that if you make them mad, they have the ability to put you under should they so choose, right? If you don't handle them properly. So I think that I've seen this a number of times on my consulting work, is builders kind of getting over their head financially, and they can't weather that storm, right? And they go under from dealing with this size of project. So either having the financial capacity to handle it, having those dollars in the bank, having the lines of credit, whatever, to take on the size of project, or being very, very smart in how you structure your payment terms, your draws on your project so that you're not playing the bank,
Yeah,
right?
Totally. So to me, construction is not rocket science. It's checklists and doing the work, and everybody's in agreement that the work is done.
Right.
And then there's payment. That it's as easy as that to me. Now, our contracts are cost plus because I don't want there to be confusion around the payment process. So if I do my job, you're going to be excited about it and you're going to pay for it. That's the simple version. And I will say, if you follow that recipe, it works. Now, there are humans on the planet that may not be nice and may not have alignment with you or me on their value system.
Right.
So up front, we control the controllables. So up front, when we're putting this budget together, we study the plans, we ask the questions of the architects and designers. What do we see? What do you know that's missing? What will be developed? That conversation alone in setting the project up with clear channels of what is priced, what is not priced, and to make sure we're all in agreement that that is the case. Mm-hmm. Skipping that step, you can bet you're going to have a problem at the end of the project.
Yep.
And I will say that because I'm an introvert. Like, I would rather just hang out with my family all day and not have hard conversations or, but what I learned is spend the time up front, study your work, ask questions, talk about what's not included in this price here. And by the way, by doing that, that means the project is going to cost more money, and it's never about me getting the project. It's always about sharing what I see so that even if we never talk again, that client is in the position where they need to be, where they're educated. So I think the human part of the problem is that when there's this feast or famine, I need to get this project, the truth is untold. And that's a problem in the business, any business really. Yeah. And that's a problem for everyone. So just set it up right. Yeah.
Even if you don't do cost plus. So I generally don't do cost plus. We generally do fixed price contracts. But in our pre-construction process, we are really trying to flesh out everything to get hard quotes on everything, to make sure that people understand the costs. Mm-hmm. And I think there's definitely merit to kind of both ways of structuring contracts, and we've talked about this on a lot of past episodes. But I think either way you go, it's putting in the homework to understand the costs. I didn't get bit, but we are currently having hard conversations with a client this week over this exact topic because we kind of got out of system on a very large project. And during pre-construction, great designer, love her. She has great ideas, but she had not really fleshed out all those ideas before we started the project. We're like, oh, we'll get that worked out. Okay, let's move forward. Let's plug some allowances in. Did that. Well, guess what? Now we're halfway through the project. Those choices are just now getting made. And shockingly, they are way over what the allowance was. And the homeowner is not happy because, well, why'd you put in a $50,000 allowance for that? Well, that's what you're a designer and you agreed we should put into the contract. And that's what I put in the contract. And now you're not happy because it's a lot more than that. Well, in retrospect, should have taken a step back pre-construction and said, you know what, we're not comfortable moving forward on this until this idea is fleshed out at least a little more than what it is right now, because it was not fleshed out at all before we entered the contract, right? And so now it's a point of contention, and so we want to smooth that process out to eliminate those customer pain points throughout the project. But it all goes back to the pre-construction planning and setting expectations. And we had a failure on that on this particular project right now. And so it's just, I'll add it to the lessons learned file.
Yeah. And the system to develop, like for us, we have a subcontractor pricing guide that we put together, and we make sure that we sit in the room with the client, with the designer, with the architect, and say, hey, is this lighting allowance? Like, how did we get here? Like, we literally talk about these things. So for us, same thing. Like we've gone through this before. Now we have a guide, and we go through that with everybody so that before we start, we're on the same page. That mantle, we plugged in $15,000. Is that like, tell me, is this like, are we getting this from France? Or are we getting, like locally? Like, tell me more about this.
Yeah. Every single item in the house has a scale that it can fall within. And in fact, this is the conversation that I attempted to have with this client who's a little upset a couple of days ago. I was like, look, I can give my very best guess as to what this item is going to cost, but that's my idea. That's not your designer's idea. That's not your idea. And that item could cost $500,000. I'm sorry, $500 or $50,000 or $100,000. I don't know. I'm not the designer. It's not my vision. I'm just putting this in here as a placeholder. So you can apply that to every single item in this house. You can get a $125 faucet from Home Depot, or you can get a $2,500 custom-made faucet from Waterworks or whatever, right? So every single item in the house has a big scale. So if we just sit here and plug in a whole bunch of guesses and no one's agreeing that, I mean, I'm not saying that allowances are bad. Certain things you have to have allowances for, right? But the team needs to agree that the allowances are appropriate for the project. The designer has to say, yeah, that fits within the framework of kind of what I was thinking for that. We'll nail down that final faucet selection, but I think it's going to be $1,500, $1,700. Cool. Let's go on down the road, right? That shouldn't be me as the builder making those decisions for what those allowances are without kind of consulting the rest of the team, right?
Yeah, and I think a clear description of a builder is execution. That's what we do. We execute. That's our expertise.
Yep.
We resource and we execute. The minute I pretend I know what their selections are, I'm done. Right? Because I don't.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not that talented. I don't know. I don't have that skill to develop a vision board.
Every time I guess, I'm wrong.
Yeah. So why guess, right? Leave it blank.
Yeah. The project that I just mentioned, I got a 100-page plan set. Some of the selections that I saw on there blew my mind. I'm like, I would never, ever in my wildest dreams have guessed that item would cost X. But here we are.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's better that I don't even insert myself into that process.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Because we know what we're good at.
Yeah.
We're good at delivering a product.
Yeah. I think it's really important to know or to have a self-awareness to know that you are the roadblock in certain things, right? And whether it's allowing your design team to be to do their job without you being the roadblock, or on the production side, let your team do their job without you being the pinch point or the roadblock is really important. So so pre-construction, manage the process. Don't put yourself in the middle of the process to where everything's kind of hitting on you and hinging on you, setting a number, making a decision, doing X, right? Let your design team, your production team, let them do their job.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah. Team up.
So it's taking the builder ego out of it and putting it back on the team. So, one more thing that popped into my head about kind of, we mentioned trade partners being an essential kind of next level step. Also, vendor relationships is one more thing that I wanted to throw in there. We kind of touched on this a little bit, but a lot of this stuff is not off the shelf stuff. A lot of it's not big box store stuff. So it's also having a network of vendors that or using your designer probably has a vendor, right, that he or she has already selected a material from. But it's having vendor relationships as well, in addition to just the trade partners you're executing the work, right?
For sure. They're great resources. So plumbing fixtures are a good example. There are, maybe they carry 10 different lines, a distributor. Waterworks, that's a really high-end fixture that sometimes requires some learning on the installation, or maybe a part doesn't work and we need to get something replaced quickly. We rely heavily on our vendors and distributors to be that conduit for us to keep making progress on the project. And for our trades to be able to talk to them about potential issues or issues that they're actually running into. So yes, they're a very healthy conduit to have in construction.
And I like to tell people to leverage your vendors, sales force, leverage their people to do a site visit, to come out. And so many of these companies will, if you just ask them, they will come out to the job site, walk it, look at your installation, maybe take measurements before you ever actually have something delivered, make sure it's going to work, make sure it's going to fit. I think so many contractors don't leverage those relationships and get that rep out to the field to just put eyes on it, because they generally know their product and they know how it needs to be set up to accept their product. Or once it's installed, have them come look at it. Is that right? Does that work? Yes. Mm-hmm. So it's leveraging it to make sure it's done right. It's also protecting yourself, like liability wise, because what happens if you don't check it? We go all the way to trim out, and all of a sudden it doesn't function the way it's supposed to. Who gets to pay to tear it out and do it again?
Right.
We do.
Right. Yes. And so that's the interesting thing about a building business. It's not just the core team of 2 people, 5 people, 10 people, 20 people. It's 100 people, 200 people. That's a building business. Yes, they're subcontractors and outside vendors. They're not employees. But when you look at the building ecosystem of your company and my company, it's made up of hundreds of people. And if you're not utilizing the experts, then you need to be, just like you said. You know?
Relationships, I think, are probably the most important thing in this industry, whether it's relationships just internally, but also with architects, designers, trade partners, vendors. This is a relationship business, right? Definitely. Yep. And relationships with other builders and contractors, mm-hmm. people who are going to help you grow your knowledge, learn, and iron sharpens iron. Yeah, I call other builders all the time when I'm like, I've never seen this. Like, this is what happened. What would you do? They'll come over and say, hey, this is what I would have done. Like, truly, like, people outside of my company and your company have vast experiences and are always willing to help. Yeah. So, I'm a huge fan of just collaborating. I've called other architects who are not even the architect on the project that I have a good relationship with and say, hey, have you ever had this problem or seen this detail before? What's your take on that? And they're generally happy to share. For sure, right? We're all human. We want the best for each other. All right, so we've gone a long time. To kind of wrap it up, if you had kind of like one last piece of advice for somebody who is wanting to one day kind of get to the point where they are building luxury homes, high-end homes, one piece of advice for that person, what would it be? Know when to sprint and know when to pace yourself. Align with people that put others first. Study. Know more than anyone in the room, including the architect, designer, and your boss. Be honest. Tell the truth fast. And create
constantly create. That's what I would say. How about you?
You stole all my words. No, they sound like they're your core values almost, right?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, I think I would say, yeah, patience is huge. Like, I would say don't try to rush in and suddenly be something that you're not, just because you want to do that big shiny thing. Okay, you want that big shiny thing. It takes time to get to that big shiny thing. No one goes from learning to dribble to dunking a basketball in the same week, right? There's a progression to everything. There's steps to everything. You're not going to pick up a trombone today and be playing in the symphony next week. So it's building the good habits, working consistently, learning, being coachable as you're growing. And then I think when you get to that level, it's also sharing your knowledge. I think sharing your knowledge is a big part of being at that level. It's like people now look to you as the person who has achieved something, and now it's your time. It's your time to give back as well. And as you give back, you are also going to continue learning. The more I coach and teach and do all those things, the more I learn on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Stay in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Curtis.
Well, thank you,
That was
Erin.
fun.
Yeah, really appreciate you coming and joining us today. It's been great.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Great luck on the builder's blueprint.
Yeah,
I
thanks.
know a lot of people that I know have already been a part of that, have had great things to say. So I'm excited to see where that takes you.
We're both in this business to make it better. So
all right.
Thank you.
And thank you all for listening to this episode of the Your Project Shepherd podcast. I'll see you next time. Take care.